Exactly. And now what you're going to show us is how this continues to go on with something called SERCO.
Yes, well, SERCO is basically the British. And when you say the British, you have to realize when you say the Bank of England, you say the Queen of England, the monarchy, the crown. And when you say the Bank of England, you also say all the liveries and all the monopolies that are allowed by the crown to be monopolies in those areas of their functioning. There is a company that has taken over Britain called SERCO, and they basically have taken over Australia and Canada and all the service industries. They control the many hospitals, schools. They control the nuclear power plants. They control the nuclear missiles. They control basically everything, all data management in Britain. And they have been found to have a 65% efficiency rate. So 35% just goes down the toilet. So basically they're under fraud charges, huge fraud charges, and they're probably going to go down, but they have over $2.4 billion worth of contracts in America because why? As you point out, SES members give them the no-bid contracts. Why does it always go to foreign governments? How can Urenco, a company that is British-owned, control the only large uranium enrichment facility we have in America? How is that possible? How did they get to take our uranium up out of the ground, Russians, take it to the Brits, and then they take it out of the country and give it to our enemies? This is what goes on because the SES is a bunch of bureaucrats who simply continue the status quo. SERCO has been doing this, and SERCO...
Worse than that, they award contracts to SERCO, and let's just condense this as tight as it can get. We never really won the American Revolution. The British Empire just let us think that. And we have been, even before then, but we have been subjects of the British Empire and of the Queen. And I'll be damned if I'm going to be a subject of Queen Lizard. I'm Thomas.
Elizabeth,
I'm done with
Elizabeth,
this.
you're
Elizabeth, are you
Lizzie,
kidding?
Lizzie,
We're sitting
Lizzie.
here watching this Netflix thing, of the Crown, and I'm watching it going, this is all sheer propaganda. She probably paid for that Netflix thing to run so we'd all have soft, fuzzy feelings about the Queen. But look, all that crazy talk that David Icke has been doing all these years that you out there on the say, whoa, that's like crazy talk. No, it's not. And we're going to walk you right to it.
The Queen is heartless. She is stolen from her own country and her 51 Commonwealth nations. We're going to be hammering on her very soon. Let's go back to Syria. How did that happen? Brits. Where did we get the intel for the first two fake false flag gas attacks in Syria? Brits. I think the company's called 65. But they use different companies. So it was 2 or 3 different British intelligence agencies. And guess what? Oh, this is beautiful. None of them had agents in the country. Let me repeat that. The first 2 false flag attacks in Syria were reported to us by British intelligence and private British corporate intelligence that these happened, and none of them had people on the ground in Syria. But they gave us the intelligence.
And nobody needs war more than the Queen and the Rothschilds.
Well, they need the area destabilized because you have to realize the Queen, if you wish to understand the Queen, she has her fingers in everything, and she really works through the Knights of Malta. And now, of course, the Pope has taken over the chairmanship of the Knights of Malta. But they sit around and they make plans of, how many countries they're going to bomb and how many refugees and how much they'll make from that, and then how they have to create this refugee disturbance so that the British aligned with the Israelis are drilling and pulling up the liquid gas in the Mediterranean so that Lebanon, Egypt, Syria, Cyprus, Turkey don't get their part. So they're totally into creating a war in Syria. Now, what will Trump do? It doesn't matter. Trump, here's what's going to happen. He's going to look out for America. Okay? What did he do last time? He warned them, and then he sent a bunch of cruise missiles to blow up some planes in an airfield. Next day, they were doing the same thing. Why? Because he knew they didn't drop the gas. He wasn't killing people in retaliation. He was showing the world he would push the button. Does he need to push the button this time? No, he doesn't need to. Does he need to send in troops like Michael Michael Bolton. I was calling Michael Bolton. Like Bolton, his national security advisor will tell him? No. Does he need to follow the military to send in troops? This is what they would say? No. Why? Because he knows that he needs Turkey out of NATO before they do start a World War III. He knows he's not going to confront Putin. Putin doesn't back down. He knows that Bashir al-Assad and his father were never friends of America. They are rogue CIA. They stir up the whole thing on purpose. They created the incursion of what we call ISIS coming through their country when they did a call to all nations to ask for Islamic terrorists to come to Syria, and they would arm them, fund them, and send them into Iraq to fight Americans. Don't forget that. Then when they came, and they were called Al-Qaeda when they crossed the border from Syria into Iraq, and then when they crossed the border, and even at the end, even before they crossed the border in Mosul and those last strongholds, they called themselves ISIS. But where did they retreat to? Syria. And then when they were finally chased out of the last two cities in Syria, where did they retreat to? In U.S. Hueys, in helicopters, using our equipment, they retreated to, of course, Yemen. They had been retreating to Somalia, but then Yemen became the hotbed. Why? Because it's Iranian. It's the Shiites against the Sunnis. If you don't understand that, you cannot understand the Middle East. You will not understand the Greater Israel Project, and you will not understand what's going on in Syria.
Well, I think we need to go back to the Balfour Declaration and revisit that and the motivation behind it and all the havoc that it has created since its inception.
And the Sykes-Picot and the Treaty of Versailles, and then what came out of that, out of the inquiry, came the Council on Foreign Relations, came the League of Nations, came the United Nations, and all that horrible stuff. Why do you think Trump is bashing now the World Trade Organization because of China? Because he wants to end it. That will get rid of Turkey's control and our agreements with Turkey. It'll get rid of all the stupid agreements we have with the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, which of course then is backed up by stupid bankers and brokers who are making bets on derivatives and backing that up with the Bank for International Settlements. He's going to get rid of all those folks. If he gets reelected a second term, all those will be gone. The United Nations will be nothing. And that's what it should be, because it's an attempted control of the United States of America.
And then we need to do a controlled demolition of that building. It's probably filled with asbestos and everything, and just raise it totally and be done with the UN.
Let it move to Astana.
I don't care where it moves.
Let it move to Astana.
Yeah, Astana. That's where.
They're all
and
prepared
let all
for that.
the globalists out there. We need to lock up our borders and be done with it. And we need to get out of all these wars. I'm just so freaking tired of it. It's been war all my whole life. The people that I have lost in my life because of these banker wars, just so that their greed can be fed year after year after year. I'm done with it. And I think everybody out here listening to us is done with it too.
Warlord bankers and brokers are the result of corporations being created. The first corporations were the British East India Company, the Dutch East India Company, and their German bankers. That war is still going on, and we are fighting it right now with the SES, and the imperialists are now companies like SERCO, Urenco, Rio Tinto. We're going to expose all of them soon.
And you will never hear this from mainstream media because the banksters buy these guys off and they're telling their fairy tales so that people aren't awake to it. I mean, just look at the recent psyops that are going on over there in those channels. I just don't care about talking anymore. They're saying that Sessions is to be trusted and all these people. What, you were reading this to me this morning.
Trust Sessions, trust Ray.
Oh my goodness.
Trust Mueller.
And people are still hanging
We have
out there.
trust the plan, trust Kansas, and my question was, is the next line trust Toto and the clicking of the scarlet slippers? I mean, please.
If it's not bad enough that the mainstream media fills its space with lies, now you have these alternative media shills out there drumming war.
Oh yeah, and they even call us names and stuff, when in fact, we are not going to stop. We're going to keep revealing to you day in and day out the truth. Do not be worried about Mueller. Syria, pray with your heart and your soul and your spirit that Netanyahu's attempt right now to not go to jail himself and create a war in Syria does not get accomplished, because the second that he bombs Iran, then that is the signal. Pray that Netanyahu is taken to jail, and that will end this for now.